All right, hi everybody, my name is Jeff Polzer. I'm in the organizational behavior department here at HBS. I missed this morning, which I was disappointed by. I'm teaching a new course and was teaching this morning. The course is called People Analytics. I'm going to tell you about some research today, but the research and teaching I've embarked on in the last couple of years is within the broad domain of people analytics, whereby companies are using data in new ways to guide employee practices and decisions. Think employee life cycle, for sure, predictive analytics and algorithmic inputs to hiring, promotions, retention analysis, compensation, et cetera. What I'm going to talk to you today about is collaboration. That's my area of research. Now, the title of my talk is When Meetings Multiply, and on the picture you'll see, because I'm at Harvard Business School, that's why I have that picture up there. But don't be confused. I don't mean to imply Harvard Business School is where meetings multiply. That's not the case. My co-author on this is Evan D. Philippus, one of our great doctoral students in organizational behavior. We need more collaboration. The drumbeat goes on. My guess is in every one of your organizations, you've talked about this. We have silos, we need to organize ourselves and differentiate, and of course then we need to integrate. And what are those mechanisms for doing so? And so the webinars are rolling out. I'm in the mix of trying to help companies collaborate. And certainly lots of colleagues, some of my colleagues here, lots of books about collaboration, how to do more of it and do it better. It's interesting, the world has changed in two ways, at least, in the last 10 years. One is, I used to study teams. I'd go to an organization and say, where are your teams? And by that I mean clearly bounded, stable, shared mission, top down, you know where they are, and then can I study them or write about them? Now, what I study is collaboration because, of course, there's all kinds of interconnections across the organization that aren't clearly bounded, that aren't made up of people with a shared purpose. And so we're thinking about networks much more than, and with teams embedded in networks now. That's a big change in terms of fluid collaboration across the organization that becomes then hard to track and hard to measure. In fact, in lots of organizations, if you say, how many teams do you have? They say, we don't know. We can tell you the org chart and a top-down view, but we know that there are a lot of people collaborating, and we're not sure about that. There's no line of sight to track that. So what I'm going to tell you about today is a research project that's brand new, and lots of organizations are starting to use digital trace data, email metadata, calendar metadata to figure out who is connecting with whom. And that can give us potentially a line of sight into collaboration across the organization. So collaboration's great. We need more of it. The problem is too much might be counterproductive. I assume at lunch you went and tried to catch up on your email a little bit. How many people were succeeded in catching up on their email? All right, Sidal, we got a few people. But think about your calendar. My guess is this resonates with some of you. Think about your email inbox. The problem is I don't have time to do my own work. I'm always engaging with other people in ways that I think are good, but it's hard to figure out how to optimize that. Which meeting, and think about meetings in particular, which one should I schedule? Which one should I organize? Who should I invite? Maybe I'm inviting too many people and I can scale that back. When I get invited, which ones should I attend? Which one should I decline? And what are the implications of that? And of course, which ones should I pretend I'm double booked and go in my office and shut the door so no one knows that I'm actually here? I don't do that, but a friend told me about that strategy. So this collaboration overload is interesting. The collaborative activities can crowd out individual work. Belonging to lots of different projects can tax attention. So it's hard to switch during the day from one project to another as you go through your email inbox. And then it's interesting when you get full calendars and everybody else has full calendars and we say, oh my gosh, here's a mission critical meeting we need to have with 5 of us. When's the next time we're all free? It's a month from now. So the really important stuff starts to get delayed throwing sand into the gears of the organization, and so you get this drag on potentially on organizational productivity. So that's an easy hypothesis that overload hurts organizational productivity. Except that there's another possibility, and that is that maybe it's just some people that we hear a lot about who are the really central players in the organizational network. And they indeed are overloaded. But organizationally, it's optimized. There's lots of people on the periphery of this small organization that don't look overloaded at all in terms of their collaborative connections. So maybe as an organization, it's okay to have some gatekeepers, brokers who are really central, that are the hubs of information and collaboration. And yes, they are overloaded, but as a system, it works. So we're gonna think about that possibility. And in fact, there's some writing recently suggesting that the distribution of collaborative work is actually really lopsided in organizations, and that a small number of people actually do a large amount of the collaborating. So it's plausible that there's an alternative possibility that a small number of overloaded people, perhaps, actually free up everyone else to get their work done. And as an organization, that might be a good model. How do we resolve this? As a researcher, what I set out to do is to find data so that we can compare collaboration to productivity across a large number of firms, and get at this question of how does the amount of collaboration relate to organizational productivity. So we went in with a fairly simple hypothesis, and we're going to look at meetings as a proxy for collaboration, and ask whether an increase on average in an organization of time spent in meetings increases firm productivity, is associated with an increase in productivity. If so, at some point, do you get diminishing marginal returns? And most interestingly of all, do you get an actual downturn if the gears grind too slowly? If we all get bogged down by too much collaboration as reflected in the amount of meetings? So you on board with that? Good hypothesis. We're going to test this collaboration overload hypothesis. So to do this, we're going to use, in this case for today, meeting data from that. We're working with a global company that provides an email and electronic calendar platform to customers. And the data, with lots of sensitivity and care and thoughtfulness and work between Harvard and the company, the data have been de-identified, aggregated to the level of, again, de-identified organizations, so that we know how many hours per week employees spent on average in each firm. I'll come back to that, but that's going to be a metric we'll use. And then the company for us matched the meeting data with Dun & Bradstreet firm revenue for 2016 and employee counts, so that we can construct a measure of firm productivity. And this is for a little over 149,000 firms across a lot of industries and a lot of countries, and of many different organizational sizes. So this is an example of using digital data to measure collaborative activity at scale, to get at questions that, for me, I don't know how else you'd be able to get at this type of question without these types of data. So the measures, I'm going to show you one result. I'll tell you about a few others. This is hot off the computer, so bear with me. But the predictor we're going to use is this weekly average meeting hours per employee, averaged across, in this case, we're using 1 month from 2016. So we have the data for all of 2016. We've only cleaned 1 month so far, and we'll be getting to that. We take revenue for 2016 divided by employee count as a measure of productivity for each firm. And then we control for industry, the country where the headquarters are, for the year the company was founded. The core hypothesis is this curvilinear effect. You know, does the curve actually bend down? And to do that, we'll multiply meeting hours by itself. We'll look at the multiplicative effect. Thus the title, When Meetings Multiply. So for those of you who like a regression table, Here's a quick look at one. I won't spend a lot of time on it, but there's not a clicker here. But we look at meeting hours per user, and that has a positive effect. But meeting hours per user squared has a negative effect. That's evidence of a nonlinear trend of the pattern that we saw in the hypothesis. And that's pretty robust, regardless of what you put in to control that effect. For those of you who like a picture, I'll show you this, which is a scatter plot. So on the x-axis on the bottom, we have the meeting hours per employee. On the y-axis, we have firm productivity. Each dot here represents a whole lot of firms. So imagine a mini scatter plot around each dot. So this is 149,000 some firms, but it's a mess when you put all the dots on there. But you see what appears to be a pretty whopping overload drag on productivity. The next steps are going to be to add email into the mix, to ask the question of, are there similar kinds of effects for email overload? What's the interplay between emails and meetings, with full acknowledgement that there's a whole lot of other digital trace data and collaboration tools to be looked at. There's also some interesting other indicators of overload. To the extent that emails are time-stamped, which they are, and meetings are time-stamped, you can ask the question, how many meetings occur in which someone in the meeting was sending emails during the meeting? I know you have never done that. And hopefully you're not doing that now. But even at the firm level, you can aggregate such a measure to ask what proportion of meetings are people disengaged in based on that kind of proxy. So there's some interesting things you can do, and then add longitudinal data, obviously. So questions to consider after this talk, and for us as a research team. How do you fix this? It's interesting, in the companies I've been working with and talking to, this is tough to crack. It's easy for any one person to say, like, hey, I'm just going to collaborate less. But go back to those questions, like look at your calendar and say, which meetings am I going to cross off? It's not clear in a lot of cases, and it's hard to say no to meeting invites, and yet we all end up in a lot of meetings where we're not sure that that's the best use of our time. And that's true as individuals, but then you can think about teams. How do we organize ourselves as a team to collaborate the right amount, given our interdependencies? And certainly as an organization, like how do we formally arrange ourselves and culturally guide our behavior to optimize the amount of collaboration we have? That's a tricky thing. There's a question about, how can we do research? What are the hypotheses? What are the data we can bring to bear on this problem to help companies release themselves from the drag of too much collaboration in a situation where we know that zero collaboration is not the answer, right? So that's the optimization problem, if you will, that we're working on. And I look forward to further conversations. Thank you so much.